Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special treat for you. David, tell them who we have.
Our guest is an actress who you have most definitely seen at least a time or two, working for over 4 decades with more than 230 films on her resume. Beth Grant has starred in classic films and television series such as Rain Man, Flatliners, Dragnet, Child's Play 2, The Golden Girls, Coach, Murder She Wrote, Speed, Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, A Time to Kill, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, The X-Files, Donnie Darko and Southland Tales, Malcolm in the Middle, Matchstick Men, 6 Feet Under, Little Miss Sunshine, My Name is Earl, Extract, Crazy Heart, King of the Hill, Rango, Modern Family, Dexter, Justified, Grey's Anatomy, The Office, American Gods, The Mindy Project, Netflix's A Series of Unfortunate Events, and of course, No Country for Old Men, and a few dozen handfuls more on top of that, and also starring in over 30 plays from Los Angeles to New York. Plus, she has somehow found time to dabble in writing and directing. Beth Grant, you are obviously extremely busy, so thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Wow, you must really be out of breath. That was fantastic.
COVID free.
Thank you so much, Ms. Grant, for coming on with us today. Again, we always want to say thank you in these times that we live in to anyone that would be more than gracious enough to grace our set. So again, thank you. Now, let me jump right into it. This is my Hollywood Entertainment voice here. Now, by Hollywood standards, you kind of got a late start as far as screen acting goes. Now, with your first credited role around 30 years old, we read that as a child you aspired to be a veterinarian and a movie star, kind of your own personal dog day afternoon. What inspired you to start actively pursuing acting as a career, and what was that journey like, turning an ambition into reality?
Well, I'd done a little, as you saw, like BJ and the Bear. I had done the pilot of that and a couple of things, but really, okay, I'm going to tell you a sappy story a little bit, but I was working for a television show called Real People. I don't know if you remember that show, but Sarah Purcell, Fred Willard, comedian Byron Allen, who's now a gazillionaire running his own network. I mean, he's, just sweet as could be, and knew his mother well. She was a publicist at NBC. Anyway, that's a little bit of a sidebar, but that's where I was working for Real People. And it was 1984, and the Olympics were or 1983, actually. The Olympics were coming to LA in 1984. And so there was a man named Bud Greenspan who produced documentaries, and they had a big luncheon for him at 20th Century Fox. And we, for some reason, were covering it, and we had our crew there, and they started showing clips from some of his previous documentaries. And one of them was about a man from Africa. I wish I knew the country. I don't remember. And probably 1980 Olympics, who was everyone's pick to win the long distance running gold medal. He had trained, they followed him during training. Everybody thought he was going to get the gold. And he had the unbelievable thing happen. They had barely started the race, and he pulled, I think, his Achilles tendons in his leg and could barely walk. But he did not quit the race. Oh, and wow. He walked that 26 miles. He didn't come into the stadium for, a day and a half. 2 days later, he walks into the stadium limping, barely making it. By then there's, everybody's crying and cheering. He got a standing ovation in the Coliseum.
Perhaps the words of John Stephen Akhwari epitomize all that is right in the human spirit. When asked why he did not quit, he said simply, "My country did not send me 5,000 miles to start the race. They sent me 5,000 miles to finish the race."
And I was not alone. We were all moved to tears. But I realized that I had started out with this dream. And because I wasn't getting cast in things, I would pick up other jobs, and then I would get interested in those jobs. I was celebrity coordinator for Jimmy Carter. I did all these incredible, I don't regret any of my experiences, but I started out to be, an actor. And I thought, maybe that's me. Maybe I'm the long distance runner. Maybe I'm the turtle that beats the hare. It's not that it's beating anyone, but I started crying, and I had to leave the luncheon. I went over to the crew, the DP, and I said, "Can you take it from here? I've got to get back to the office." I cried all the way back to the office. I cried in the office till I had to go home. My assistant said, is there anything I can do? And I said, no, I've got to go. And I went home and I called my best friend at the time, Karen Grassley. You might recognize her name. She was the mom on Little House on the Prairie.
Okay.
And I heard myself say, Karen, and miraculously she answered the phone. First of all, she was a pretty busy lady. And I said, Karen, I can't not act anymore. It just came out of me. And she said, okay, I've been waiting for this. It's about time. And she said, you need to get to class, a serious class. You need to be serious, dedicated, blah, 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 blah. She read me the riot act. And then coincidentally, the next day I was having lunch with a character actor named Alan Garfield. He also was born with Alan Gurwitz. You probably know his wonderful work. I told him, I said, I want to be an actress. I'm really going to go back to acting. And that's what I've always wanted to do. And he said, oh, well, what actor do you want to model your career after? And I said, I don't want to say. And he said, well, write it down. I said, I don't want to write it down. He said, write down the initials. So I wrote down MS.
I knew you were
And
going
I
to say
said,
Meryl Streep.
Yeah. But he says, oh, Maureen Stapleton, good choice. Character actor, right? A leading lady character actress, but still. And I was like, no, not Maureen Stapleton in my mind. But anyway, he invited me to his acting class. I went, and that happened to be the week that Tennessee Williams died. And the teacher was friends with Tennessee Williams and had worked with him. And at the end of class, not only did he do great critiques, but at the end of class, he gave a eulogy for Tennessee Williams. And then, said, I hope you're enjoying your martinis wherever you are, Tennessee Williams. And then he walked from the classroom, and I said, oh my God, that's my teacher. Because he, first of all, being from the South, Tennessee Williams, but also he understood theater. That was a great eulogy and a great exit, and I said, that's my guy. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to get into one of his classes, and it was a great class. Tom Selleck, Patrick Swayze, Tony Danza, Grant Kramer, all these really good. This was 1980. Yeah, 83. That's when it was. And then I stayed in class for a couple more years. But so that was what it was that long distance runner. I need to look up that guy and find out who he is and what he's doing. Someday maybe I could thank him, because his story is truly what inspired me to. And now at my age, after all these years, I say, oh, well, I really was long distance runner. And, I believe in that. Slow and steady wins the race.
Mhm.
Yes, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's what they say in construction. And you say that it's not about beating anybody, but you definitely beat the odds, because in most cases, especially with actresses, you have to kind of like make the industry fall in love with you while you are the attractive age for them, and then you can be grandmothered in, I guess, into working for a long term. But to come into it at like the age of 30 and still make a name for yourself to where you have all these credits is very impressive.
Well, thank you. Well, and actually, I don't know the credit list exactly, but really, I didn't go to his class till I was 33. I mean, I had worked a little, like you say, but that's when I got serious. And I also began, because of him. He was a very powerful man, and he really got me to accept myself as a character actress. Now it's my great honor, but back then, you think, I don't know, that not that you'll be considered ugly, but unfortunately, in our culture, looks do matter more than they should, really. And so it took a while for me to get that.
Yeah, that talent is overlooked, unfortunately, too much. It's well, we'll get into Speed, but first, Rain Man. So this was like your first major motion picture, and you're working with Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise, Barry Levinson is directing. What was that experience like? Because Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise and Barry Levinson and all pretty much made impactful movies by that point. Like, they were big names, and you're right there with them now.
Well, it was extraordinary, and I was so moved by the experience. I remember after I wrapped, going back to the hotel and calling my parents and just sobbing. And they appreciated that they were glad I was working, you know, but they couldn't quite understand why it was such a big deal to me. By the time I shot that, I shot it when I was 38, but I turned 39 shortly after that, which is pretty old to get your first big movie, you know. And but to work at that level was incredible. And I was a huge fan of all three of them. I loved Barry Levinson movies, all the, you know, the Diner trilogy. And then I really loved Avalon, that baseball movie. I just thought at the time I remember seeing it, I kept saying, this is real surrealism. People think it's Salvador Dali, but this is a dream. This is like a dream, and he's made it real. And it was so impactful to me. In fact, we watched it fairly recently, and it really held up. It was just as moving to me as ever, and sad, and about dreams. So I was a huge fan. So yes, to work with him. And he was so sweet. He didn't say anything to me, really. He was very supportive. I mean, he smiled. And then at one point he came over and whispered in my ear and he said, "You're doing great, kid." You know, that was it. And Dustin Hoffman was wild man on campus. I mean, I think he was probably trying to loosen me up. He knew I'd done a lot of stage, but he also knew I hadn't done a lot of movies. And I had asked for the camera crew frequently will have a diaper on set because it's the fabric's so smooth to clean the lenses and things. I mean, now they probably have something fancier, but back then they used to use diapers. And I was the mother of 6 kids. And I said, oh my God, what a great idea. She probably has changed a million diapers, has a lot of diapers around. Maybe I would have one and I would even be either changing a diaper or drying the dishes or dusting or using it. So I wanted to come to the door with this prop in my hand to have this prior event. So they gave it to me. Well, Dustin got it away from me on one of the breaks and he's running around and chasing me with it and popping me on the butt. I mean, just so cute and fun. But, you know, he was loosening me up. Yeah. And I think it was very conscious on his part. And he was wonderful with Tom Cruise too. One of my favorite stories is looking out the window of my little clapboard house. I could see the back of Tom Cruise's, you know, his back. And of course, he's in good shape. I mean, and he would work out in the morning before we got picked up at 5 o'clock. And at night when he got back, I mean, he has worked hard for that career. He's not an accidental star by any means, but he was standing there and you can see Dustin's little arms going like this, you know, behind his back. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I didn't want to wear any makeup. And I wanted to just have my hair in a ponytail. I had this vision of the character, which is pretty, you know, for someone who hasn't done that much, but I really wanted to do her real. I had been up to, Big Sur, and we had hiked and we had found the cabin where they had raised the first family of Big Sur, 12 kids in this little tiny cabin. And I said to my husband, man, they never do the real deal. This woman raised 12 kids in this little cabin, you know, come on. And so I had it in my mind that I wanted to play a pioneer woman. And then lo and behold, got this audition and the description was literally pioneer woman. And so I went in with no makeup to audition, and that's the way I wanted to play it. And so I went up to the guy that, you know, Tom Cruise makeup person, and I said, you know, I'd like to do it without makeup. And he said, abracadabra, you're done, and let me do it. And so I don't know, I felt really good about that. And, you know, my house dress, I'm very familiar with women who, you know, wear those house dresses around the house and don't have time for makeup and hair and just, you know, raising those kids and just trying to survive. So they let me do what I came to do. And I was very appreciative. And then we had some improvisation, and that I sang a little song that my husband's family sings. And so I don't know, it's just a fabulous experience. It really was. And I had a reunion a couple of years ago with those kids. And they're all grown up and successful. And they took the money that they earned in residuals and invested in a business that they run. And they do very well. And so we went out to the farmhouse and met. And Oh, I was so moved by it.
Mom.
That's right, because they were all real
That's right.
siblings. Yeah.
Now that is amazing. That is an amazing story. You can't find that on IMDb. With that being said, you mentioned working with those great iconic actors, and of course Levingston working with him, and they've all went on to do very good things. But a personal friend of the show, the AD on that film was Dave McGifford, and I mean he is a friend's friend of the show. Such a great guy. Did you get to work with him directly at all on Rayman?
Well, he was there. I did. Unfortunately, he was pretty busy. You know, the ADs are in the hot seat all the time, and his whole team is in the hot seat. I mean, so sadly, I can't say that I got to know him, but it was a fabulous team, which is a great compliment to him because, I mean, they were cooking. They were cooking. And in fact, there was a shot of, you know how sometimes in clouds, the sun will come through the clouds and it looks like God is just going through the clouds, you know, those kind of days. Well, we looked out the window and there was one of the most beautiful, it's in the movie too, this beautiful thing. Well, the DP wanted to get it. And I mean, they moved. Next thing you know, there's a crew, they're in the car, they drive down the road, they shoot Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman in their car, and that they got that shot, and then they come back. We still finished the day. We still finished the day. And so my compliments to him, give him my regards. That I just felt that they were extremely on it, and they were traveling, and I think there were some reshoots, and they still got it done.
I liked the family in the farm where they had to knock on the door and get him in to watch his TV program before he freaked. Those kids, there were 6 little kids there. That was, well, you can imagine, you know, trying to get them all to focus and stay with it. And Dustin's doing what he's doing, which is the kids are like, you know, what? And Tom Cruise is there, P.S. So it was interesting and sweet, very sweet.
They were terrific.
That is awesome. I know I always preface when I see something on IMDb that I saw it on IMDb because it's like 70-30 as far as accuracy goes on there. But it states that your trademark character is someone who is arrogant, conservative, stickler to the rules, or even downright evil. Would people that only know you as the characters you play? I mean, I'm already surprised to meet you in person, but I guess the question would be: is there any similarities to the characters that you play to the real Beth Grant?
Well, my husband thinks so. He says, what they don't know is that's the real you, like Kitty Farmer and Donnie Darko. And he always teases me about that. I mean, one time I said to him, I said, why do I play so many religious fanatics? And he said, because you are one. I said, what are you talking about? That's not true. But I am very spiritual, you know, and I do pray, I meditate. I'm fortunate that I have most days I have a great faith, you know, in life, in humanity, and in God. And I always say Jesus is my guy, you know, which I know people might think that's a little sacrilegious, but that's the way it is for me. That's the way I play. It's not, you know, all up in the sky with a list saying bad, good, bad, good. That's just not the way I do it. So I said, I am not, but I guess I am. That is my focus in life, is to try to be of service and try to be a channel of love, even though these characters are sometimes like the one on Criminal Minds. I mean, I was a murderer and a kidnapper and a pedophile and just a horrible person. And when Matthew Gray Gubler talked to me about the role, I said, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to play this character. And he said, no, listen to me. He said, I'm doing it like a Grimm's fairy tale. And this is a cautionary tale to parents to watch their children, because there are a lot of kidnappings. And I mean, a lot of the kidnappings are familial, you know, and has to do with divorce or whatever, but not all. I mean, there are like 100,000 kidnappings a year, and it's that quick to take a child. I didn't know a lot of this previous to that. And he said, I want to do this as a cautionary tale. So then I said, I'm in. Maybe I'll save one child. Who knows?
Has there ever been a role that you turned down because a lot of the characters that you play are right there on the line of where satire meets almost punching down at a stereotype of what a believer is. Has there ever been something that crossed the line too much for you where you didn't feel comfortable portraying somebody like that?
It was a remake of a Toby, I want to say Chainsaw Massacre. You know,
Okay. Yeah,
and
yeah.
they kept coming back with more money, and it wasn't even that big a part. And I thought, why do they want me for this so badly? And I didn't want to do it. My husband said, no, you're not doing it. It's too much. It's, you know, and I called my friend Todd Holland. You mentioned Malcolm in the Middle, who put me on Malcolm in the Middle. He's my dear friend. We did a pilot together called Five Houses. I did The Wizard, that he directed a film, this big cult movie.
The Nintendo commercial.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's it. And so Todd said to me, always ask yourself, what are you putting in the universe? And so I've tried to have that be my guideline ever since then. And that was 20 years ago, I guess. I remember recently my agent, I can't remember exactly the character, but I know I felt I didn't like the tone. It was a hateful tone and there was nothing rewarding about it. And I remember saying to him, I said, I don't like the tone of this. I don't think they're up to any good. They're salacious. And
Yeah.
there've been a couple of things. I think things, you know, no judgment, everybody to each his own, as they say. That's what my mother said on her deathbed. I was making amends to her for something. And she said, oh, Beth, everybody has their own path. And I thought, you know, that's a very good thing to leave me with, because it sort of like keeps me from being in the judging business. You know, I can just like let people live their lives, accept people, and let life just go on. I'm not in charge. I'm not the boss. I'm not God. I don't need to play God, you know.
Well, Morgan Freeman's already done that, so nobody else is playing
everyone-
God.
Everyone has their own paths, and some of them are leading straight to hell.
Now, before we get off that subject, let me ask a quick question. Now, to the best of my recollection, I think I've only seen you, as you talked about earlier. You mainly played one type of character, and I think again you answered this question with the kidnapping. But is there a role that you did accept that allowed you to totally break away from the norm of what you've done? And was it that role, or was there another role that, like, I'm not doing this, I'm completely someone else, and I'm going for it?
Huh, that's interesting. Well, you know, it's funny because Rain Man was actually a wonderful mother. She was protecting her kids in her home. I don't know how I took a wrong turn after that.
No more kids. Get them out of here. I can't do it. Yeah.
Well, there's a movie out called Blues for Willowdene, and it's Octavia Spencer, Dale Dickey, and me, and then an actor named David Steen. And it was a play first, and Dale Shores, the writer who did Sordid Lives, also wrote it for Octavia and me. And I played a victim of domestic violence, and her name is Willowdene Winkler. And honestly, I love her so much. She was a good person. I mean, I don't want to tell you the ending if you haven't seen it, but I'm not saying that she's perfect, but she's trying to better herself. And she has this wretched husband who is, you know, really a batterer. And she's a good person trying to change. I remember telling my acting teacher, I don't want to play a victim. And he said, well, she's not a victim if she's trying to change. And I was like, right. That's my hook into her. So I would say she was like that. I did a play called Grace and Glory. And she's a 90-year-old Appalachian woman who's dying of cancer. And this do-gooder volunteer has just moved to town, and she comes out to her cabin to help her. And they are just like this. But, you know, by the end of the play, they are like this. And it's beautiful play. I love it so much. I hated for it to close. I would love to do it again. And I've still got time. I can do it for the rest of my life, possibly. I could get to do it again. So I always think, yeah, maybe I'll do it with my daughter or something like that. She could play that character. She's a very talented actress, went to Juilliard, so on. So I don't know, but those two. But then in television, I haven't always played terrible people, but you're right. When I think about it, the parts are going through my mind, I think, oh, a lot of them are like that. So I don't know.
You're nothing like those. You're awesome. You're nothing like those characters. You're
Oh,
awesome.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. But I was going to say, I think my chin and my nose, you know, and I have thin lips. And so I have a sort of a typical crone, they call it, a witch face as you get older. And I think it has to do with just the way I look. Because obviously, I did fix my hair because I was coming to see you guys. But, when I have my hair pulled back and no makeup, and if I have an ugly look on my face, my daughter, when she was little, sometimes would say to me, Mama, why are you mad? And I said, I'm not mad. And I learned to smile all the time, because she thought I was mad. And I wasn't. I was just my face. So I don't know. I think, God gave me this face for a reason. And it's, I play him to the hilt if I get the chance. I'm trying to think, what am I getting ready to do? Oh, I have a wonderful character coming out on Goliath, that show on Amazon.
Mhm.
I play a tough judge, and she's tough, but she's really my homage to RBG. And you never know what they use and what they don't use. But I did 5 episodes, and I will tell you that however she turns out, I did have a heart. And I hope that you get to see it. I hope you can say, oh, there it is. I see her. So I try to, even when I'm playing these terrible characters, I try to give them a backstory inside myself, and I try to find something in them, like Little Miss Sunshine, that character, her whole life was that pageant. And she had learned over the years that if she let a hair get out of place, that the whole thing could fall apart. And so, yeah, she was way too rigid, but and Kitty Farmer and Donnie Darko. I feel my heart goes out to them, that they have to cling to that rigidity in their lives because they're so scared to death, So I love all my characters in their own way, strangely enough.
You have to, and you do a great job at forcing the audience to feel empathetic for the characters that you play, which is even harder for someone like you or with the characters that you're taking on. Yeah. The first now I remembered seeing you in Rain Man, but the first character that you played that really made an impact on me I think it was because I knew you from Rain Man. When I saw Speed in 1994, it's like I know her from somewhere. You played Helen, the very uneasy passenger aboard bus 2525 with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. This movie was also kind of my introduction to them. It was right before both of their careers really took off into, especially Keanu Reeves has transitioned into God-like status.
The biggest action film star, except for Tom Cruise, I guess, right? The two of them.
Yeah. What was it like working on that production with them? Because you're pretty much just on a bus with them the whole time, right?
Well, it was great. It wasn't what we signed on to do. The script was rewritten. It was originally Graham Yost wrote the original script, and it was different. All of us on the bus had backstories. And for instance, I had a little dog. I had just gotten engaged. I had a great part. We all did. The 6 or 7 main bus characters all had these stories, and we got picked up at the same bus stop every morning. We all knew each other, very friendly. And Sandy played a girl who was trying to be a stand-up comedian, and I had been to the club to see her show the night before. And I was a hero. I saved the bus driver. He had a heart attack. He didn't get shot. And I volunteered to get off the bus instead of being a whiny coward, who was trying to escape. And Hawthorne James, the bus driver, his getting shot was Joss Whedon did the rewrite.
Oh, John.
Yeah, poor, yeah. Ooh, tough stuff right now, huh?
Yeah. That's I was just thinking about that.
It was a great movie, and your character was great. But your character was one of those. I remember just hollering at the screen like, "Oh my God, just shut up! Shut up! You're gonna get everybody killed."
When I went to the premiere, because obviously I hadn't seen the movie, and I thought, "Oh my God, get her off that bus, that whiner! What about the rest of us? What about the rest of us? Just sit down and shut up and listen, follow directions." But and I left the party. I didn't even stay for the party. I was just like, oh, I can't bear it. But I will say that what Jan said to me, and I knew Jan because he had been the DP on Flatliners. And so I knew he was very talented. And he said, I went to him, I said, there's no part. And he said, no, now trust me, this is what the studio wanted, but I'm going to get a lot of coverage of you. We're going to shoot it like a European film. And, you know, this is going to make you famous or whatever. I'm already famous. I was in Rain Man, you know, whatever. I didn't say
Here we
that.
go.
I didn't say that, but you know, but the real reason, and I did believe him, but also I fell in love with Sandra Bullock. She and I went to the same college, East Carolina University in North Carolina, and I had been sort of jealous of her because even though I was older, I had been, you know, sort of the biggest name that had come out of the school, and then she came along. And she had gotten the lead in a sitcom, and oh, they were just all over themselves about her. And, you know, in the alumni, big pictures of her and okay pictures of me. But, and this writer in the Raleigh News and Observer said, oh, you'll love her. You know, let me give you her number. She'd love to talk to you. I never called her. And then we're sitting there for the reading in the conference room over at Fox. And we didn't know who was going to be playing that part. And here she walks in. I thought, oh my God, it's that woman from East Carolina University. And then she turned and looked at me. I mean, literally, I fell in love with her. It was just her face lit up. She recognized me. She came over. She was polite. Next thing I know, we're joking, we're laughing, we're screaming. We laughed for the whole movie. She saved me. She saved me. Because not having much to do except sit there. And my daughter was 9 months old. I was still breastfeeding and she couldn't come to the set. So I was miserable leaving my daughter at home. I don't know what I would have done without Sandra Bullock. I really don't. And I, you know, I don't see her very much anymore, but I will always love her. And if she ever needs me in the middle of the night, I'll be there. You know, I owe her.
That was the movie where I fell in love with Sandra Bullock too. I had as a teenager, I had an unhealthy obsession where anybody in my family would buy me, if she was in a magazine, anything, they'd buy it for me because they just knew it was. I actually wrote all of her lines down from Speed. I had no idea why. 'Cause this was before you can just get scripts offline. It was.
I just want you to know this is the first time I've heard the story just like you, so I'm equally as freaked out as you are. Don't think that he tells me stuff.
Well, it's the first time I've ever said it out loud to other adults. And as I'm saying, I'm like, just shut up.
It's too late. Let me ask you this, because you did say that all you guys had to do was sit there. So I did have a question, because me and him have sometimes thought about it, because we've made films and we've clearly watched a bunch of films. How many days and how long each day would you say you guys were on that bus?
6 weeks, 12 hours a day.
I'd have jumped off. That's that. So it was truly you that walked off, not the character. You're like, I got to get off this thing.
I gotta go. Listen, I felt so bad. Mark Gordon, who's a huge television producer now, was the producer, and he was so sweet. We really did have a good time. I mean, it was because of Sandy and Keanu being the sweetest thing on earth. If we had, you know, terrible leads who were prima donnas and not nice to people, it would have been awful. But we didn't. We had her, we had him. Jan was very funny. I mean, he was sometimes terrible to his crew. He would scream, you know, at people, but funny, very funny off camera. And Alan Ruck was so great. We had a great time. But nonetheless, I was so glad when I wrapped. And Mark Gordon had gotten a cake for me. And so he was so excited at lunch to present this cake, and everybody's, you know, cheering and stuff. And I started singing this song. Well, let's see how it go. A goodbye, goodbye, a goodbye, goodbye, a goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. You know, what is that? Papa's got a brand new bag, I think, right? I gotta go. Anyway. He looked so sad. He had such a little sad leader. He'd given me this cake, and he could tell I could not wait to leave. And it was hot sun on the breaks. You know, we would wait till the sun got in a certain place where it would cool off so we could be outside. And then we were salsa dancing, and we had 4 o'clock chocolate. And, you know, if we were shooting somewhere that there were children, Sandy would steal candy from the craft services and hand it out to them. And Hawthorne and I were terrible. We just like had the best time together telling stories. And one time the crew, we were on the 105 freeway, and they would be on the side because the cameras, we shot with 11 cameras, And at that time, that was really unusual, and a helicopter and all this stuff. And so the bus would go down, but he wasn't really driving the bus. They had other people like up on top, and I don't know how all they did it. So when it was time to turn around, you didn't turn the bus around. You just had the other driver drive it. So it was like you were backing up, but of course you weren't. You get it, right?
Yeah.
So I remember once, like I was sitting up there, and Hawthorne and I acted like we were making out as we go by the crew, and the crew's going, I mean, we were wicked. We had fun.
That's awesome. That
And
sounds like
Keanu was a doll, and he was, hard to get in such good shape, and he was eating brown rice and vegetables, really taking care of himself, and just so sweet, so sweet.
That's awesome. Now, you've worked with the late, great Patrick Swayze, 1995's To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and 2001's Donnie Darko. Do you have any memories of him that you'd like to share?
Well, we were in acting class together, as I mentioned, and with Milton Gonzalez, and we worked on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf together.
oh yeah.
And it was extraordinary working with him. And it was around the time that I was starting to accept myself as a character actress. And Martha's a tough old broad. And when I had envisioned myself, as some gorgeous ingenue, and then now I'm playing, Martha, it was hard for me. And there was a beautiful actress named Darlene Flugel who had been a model, and she was playing Honey. And the other guy, Cal Bartlett, who was playing George, were, flirting with her and paying her attention. And I got tears in my eyes, and he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Oh, character actress," whatever I said. And he got me by the shoulders. He said, "Don't you know Colleen Dewhurst is beautiful? Don't you know Maureen Stapleton is beautiful? You're beautiful." And whatever he said meant a lot to me at that time. Really helped me accept who I am as a human being. And then we're in To Wong Fu, and after they've done us up, and we're looking good, and I've got the boa, and I'm coming downstairs, and I had played it the first take as very campy, and ba 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 ba. And he came over and just whispered to me. He said, "Maybe this is a little bit like that day in rehearsal." And I was like, oh my God, I immediately filled up, and I came down the stairs in a very vulnerable way. And I was very moved because Baby Ugly, was pretty now.
Mhm.
And so, and it was the last take. It's the only take that we had for the rest of the day. And that's the one they used. So I have him to thank for that. And then when I was auditioning for Donnie Darko, there's a lot of stories. I really wanted to do it. I knew Jake since he was 3 years old. And the night I read the script, I was here by myself, and I found myself standing in the middle of the bed when I finished it. It was about 11:30. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. I want to do this movie. So by the time I got into that audition the next day, I came in like a tornado, just Kitty Farmer all over. And I did the reading, and I messed up on the last line, which is, the famous line of, "Sometimes I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion." So what I said was, "Sometimes I doubt your commitment to miracles in motion." And oh my God, they just laughed. And they had told me that Patrick Swayze was playing that part. And I said, "You just have to give me this part," which of course is also very Kitty Farmer. Sean McKittrick told me later, he said, "As soon as you walked in, we knew you were the one." Because I was just chewing my arm off, to get this part. So, but it really did send me over the edge, because I already wanted it to get to work with Jake, and the script was so good. But then for him to be playing my hero, and he was brave. He turns out to be, a child pornography ring. He's running a child. So, he was a brave actor. And plus he was a beloved friend, and his wife. And yeah, I worked with her too in class, and we just loved each other. And at the memorial service, it was so beautiful. I mean, they had it over at the Sony lot, and they, on our cars, they had a picture of him riding bareback on his, white Palomino with his shirt off. And then inside they had drummers, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. Gorgeous.
Amazing.
But it was beautiful, but I still miss him a lot. I really do.
I think.
Yeah,
I
oh,
think.
it's
Yeah. No, I was gonna say. I think we all do. And remember, we. I told there. Netflix has the movies that made us, and we went back. And I don't know if you've ever seen, but if you ever get a chance, Dirty Dancing, they show how they actually made it, how he got picked, and all this stuff. It's like, man, we never saw this stuff before, and just to see him offset. No, he was a football player. He injured himself. He was a classical dancer. Like you learn so much about him, and it's like so amazing. So I think we both share that same sentiment.
Yeah, it hit hard because I mean he's one of those actors I was looking forward to watch gracefully transition into different roles as he got older. That's it's something
And
that
he
we'll never
would've.
get.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
easily.
especially with like I could see him headlining a streaming series, trying out a different character.
How wrong was I that I used to confuse him when I was younger all the time with Kurt Russell all the time? I don't.
They both had the hair.
It was. I think it was the hair. It had to be. All right. So we're fanning out. We're sorry.
There's a movie you might like to check out called Without a Word. And his wife directed it, and it's about them as dancers. They met in his mother's dancing class. That's how they met in Texas.
So without a
And
word.
they developed it in our class. And I think it's a terrific movie. It didn't get a lot of play, but that doesn't mean anything. As you know, a lot of movies don't. But it's called Without a Word.
We'll definitely know.
We'll definitely check that out. Now, one movie that did get a lot of play is 1996. You starred in a classic film, atop one of our greatest, or of our list, A Time to Kill. Now, again, yes, your ECU alumni is in the building. You and Sandra Bullock share the screen again. So let me ask you this. With a film surrounded by so much tension and controversy in its subject matter, what was a production set like? What was that like?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question. There was I'm trying to think, was it a firebomb in a small, those little country grocery stores nearby? We shot in Jackson, Mississippi while we were shooting. There was a KKK event. I wish I could remember the details of it, but it got our attention and we realized that this was a very, very important story to tell. But for it to happen in that day and age, and I know later I was there working on some other movie and I turned on the television set and A Time to Kill was on TV. And so I wrote Sandy and I said, you can't believe I am in Jackson, Mississippi, and I turned the television set. And her first question was, what's it like there now? And, how are the racial relationships and what's it like? And I said, well, I think it's better because I had gone to the Episcopal Church. I don't know why I went there, but I think it was like a Sunday fellowship thing or something. I don't know why I went, and it was extremely diverse, extremely so, and happy. Not just like, oh, we got to do this because we're a church. This was a happy group of people and very integrated. So it's funny that she asked me that question because normally when you're on a movie, you don't necessarily, engage with the local community, but I just had. And
Right.
so I said, I think the report is good. I think they've, but who knows? I don't know what it's really like, but it seemed to me that things had changed. And so I hope it's true. I worked there a few times. I did, As I Lay Dying, I shot in Jackson. I did a movie called Rising Place with Patha Murkerson there. It's funny. I don't know why Jackson, Mississippi, but I've been there a couple of times to work.
You've got the right dialect for it.
Oh, Time to Kill. I will say this too. I mean, Sam Jackson in that movie is so great. And when I got sent, I knew Joel Schumacher from class. He was also in class with us. And when we were premiering Tu Wong Fu in New York, and my agent called and said, you've got an offer for this new movie, Joel Schumacher's directing. And they were sitting in the script, and I get the script and I open that first scene. I was like, no. I hadn't read the book. I don't want to do this. I don't want to play the mother of those kids, those horrible boys. And so I called Joel and I said, Joel, how do I wrap my head around this? How does she love those boys? How does she testify against Samuel Jackson? And he said, it's your fault. So again, parents' responsibility. And I said, okay, I get it. He said, she, probably has some alcoholic husband who's not there. She works all the time and she has not paid as close attention to those boys as they needed. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be her, but I did it. And, they needed that story told,
That's yeah, I mean that's such a challenging character to play, and that kind of answers my next question is what about your approach to acting, especially with roles as complicated as Cora May Cobb, where you're yeah, you're playing you have to have the audience feel some kind of empathy for you because at the end of the day you're a mother who is losing your child. But at the same time there's so much wrong with that character, like inherently wrong with the character. I'm curious when you're getting into a role like that, like how do you insulate yourself from not going too deep into those shoes where because you have to identify with the character on some kind of level to make the audience feel something, but is it dangerous to go to identify too much with the character? Do you feel like you might like lose some of your own moral compass in that journey?
Well, I used to think that you had to. I used to think that if you were a real actor, that you and had to go really deep and that um I didn't think you could drop it so easily, I thought you sort of had to live it. I know, as some actors do. But
Mhm.
actually that same teacher talked to me about Maureen Stapleton. He had been directing her on Broadway, and she would be in a scene and she'd be crying, and then it would be dinner break and she'd say, who wants to go to Joe Allen's, And I was like, well, I'm not that kind of person. But because of him, when I was doing that domestic violence play, there's no way I could live with that. If I had to live with that day after day, it was a play. And I have a family and a daughter at the time, who was 10 years old. I couldn't bring that home. I mean, I did when I was finding her, it was a struggle. And there were nights that I did smoke a few cigarettes. I don't smoke anymore, but I remember sitting out on the front porch, smoking cigarettes, and all 5 of our cats came around and our dog came around, and they were all like, what's going on here? I could feel that they knew that I was suffering as I was finding her. However, once I found her, I didn't have any problem letting her go. So it's just a mental decision, I think, that you have to make that, you're going to go as deep as you need to go. You're going to do the work,
Mhm.
but you aren't going to take her home. And I don't do that. And funnily enough, I argued with my teacher about it until I understood it. And I was doing a movie that Clint Eastwood was directing, and we were standing up at the door, and his AD said to me, you know what I like about you? I like that you're always laughing and joking. And then we start rolling and suddenly you're in character. He said, it reminds me of Maureen Stapleton. I swear to God. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying that. And so I really felt like I had it then, and so, but I will say this in all honesty, at this age, I don't really like going deep unless it's a really good project.
Yeah.
I can't say what, but there's a project now that I may or may not be doing where I play this racist, and we haven't found her yet. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, I have a signed contract, but I think they would let me out of it if we can't figure it out. But I didn't want to do it. I did. My first thing was no. And but the producing team are dear, dear friends of mine. And they're African Americans, and I admire them, I guess I would say, more than any other people I know in show business. That's the truth. And so I told my agent, and I said, well, if I get the offer, my answer is yes, because I'll just try to figure it out. We may not be able to figure it out because it's tricky. It's very tricky. And it's not that I'm willing to be the bad guy. It's okay. But you still got to figure out, and I'm supposed to be funny. Not that there is nothing funny about racism.
Yeah.
I mean, Archie Bunker was an anomaly. And that thing ago is, look how long ago that was too.
Right.
And, George Jefferson always got the upper hand, and Lionel got the upper hand, and he always lost. But you can't, I don't know. As I say, we haven't found it.
Yeah, That, I mean, it's big of you to be willing to walk away from a role if you can't do it respectfully in the right way to bring it to life. But I
Yeah.
think there's definitely humor to be found in a character like that, as long as the character is established the right way, as they're established as, like you said, a cautionary tale, or this is an example of what not to do.
Mhm.
Always
Right.
Sunny has It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one of my favorite shows, and they do a lot of satire on there where, and a lot of the episodes have been pulled from Hulu because people just don't understand the nuance of satire anymore. Where if characters are playing racist, the joke
They
is
have that on. They have that on Sunny in Philadelphia. They have races.
they have a few episodes that are. I mean, they have an episode called the first episode is called "The Gang Gets Racist." They have an episode where the gang turns black, and but it's all about like punching themselves, like making themselves
Well,
into a
that's the
punching
trick.
bag to
Right.
um
That's the trick.
Well,
You can't. It just can't be. But maybe we'll figure it out. I hope so.
it's definitely intriguing just in what you've given us today. It's yeah, it sounds like it'd be a fun a unique challenge at the least.
Yeah. If it's, yeah, yeah, we'll see. I'll let you
um,
know.
yes.
I want to go back to the year 2000, Y2K. You starred in an episode of The X Files, seventh season, Signs and Wonders. I'm a big fan of the show. I'm a bigger fan of David Duchovny. So I'm just curious what that set was like to work on.
Well, it was terrific. It was I knew Jillian Anderson from, gosh, I've forgotten our mutual friends, but we had some mutual friends. So I had met her a couple of times, and I knew her before the show started, and so I think she knew I really liked her, that I wasn't just like kissing up to her or something. And so she was wonderful. And then David Duchovny is funny. I mean, he made me laugh. And uh, my husband had done the show and did a very important role on the show. I've forgotten the name of it now. Mine was Signs and Wonders, and his was, he played a serial kidnapper who kept women in his basement, and then one of them escaped, and then he was psychically bonded with her. And in the end, he was trying to drown her. Does that ring a bell to you if you're a fan of the show?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my husband's, and it was a very well received episode.
Okay, now speaking of other shows, you've appeared on so many, and I do mean so many great television shows from iconic classics to modern masterpieces. Is there a particular TV set that you've enjoyed working on the most, whether it be the character you were given to play, maybe the cast you've worked with, or just the overall dynamic of the production itself?
I mean, what comes to mind is the first Malcolm in the Middle I did because Todd was directing,
Mhm.
and Jane Kasmerick, she's just so great, and she's a theater person, and so we really clicked. And we had this bit where I am the leader of the pack at this school, and she's the new mom, and so she has brought brownies.
Hope everybody likes brownies.
Oh my, that is so thoughtful.
And I'm sort of checking. I said, "Well, are there nuts in it?" And she says, "Well, yeah, there's so and so." And I,
Oh, gee, we can't have that. Some of the children are severely allergic to nuts.
so you never know. You can never be too careful. So I take the brownies over and I dump them in the trash. So the first take we did it, and the prop guy had rightly greased the pan so it would come right out, and bloop, all in one piece. So Todd, unbeknownst to me or Jane, had told him, get it to stick them in there really hard so she'll have a hard time getting them out. So I say, you never can be too careful. And I go over, and those things aren't coming out. And I'm banging. He's not calling cut. So I just kept banging and banging. He's not calling cut. Bang, bang. So then I just reached my hand in the brownies and just like scooping them out with my hand, just this barbaric act. And I go over back to her. Meanwhile, she's about to lose it. You can tell she's just about to. So I hand her the thing and say,
Believe me, this isn't meant to publicly humiliate you. I'm sure they were delicious.
you can see her go, and he cuts. But it's really, that was so joyous.
You remember that
That was
episode?
so, I
You know
love,
exactly
like I said,
what
I
she's
love
talking about.
accidents. I love unexpected things. I did a movie, Brad Pitt's first movie, y'all, The Image, and with Albert Finney. And I just loved him so much. I was supposed to hate him and I was supposed to blame him for everything. And then it would be my turn to yell at him, and I'd be kind of like, I just didn't have it in me. And so the director, Peter Werner, comes up and he says, "You hate this guy. He's ruined your life. Your boss killed himself." I said, got it. And so then we're going again. And I did better that time. But he doesn't call cut. And Albert sort of crosses his arms and looks down at his feet. Now, he wasn't judging me or anything like that, but that was his body language. And I started the scene over and I went ballistic. I said, "Don't you look down at me when I'm talking to you. You look at me when I'm talking to you." And I went up on the monologue again. That was the one in the movie,
That's
and
awesome. Yes.
it became like a centerpiece of the movie. They even changed a lot of the plot points because it was so powerful. It was a news team, and they kept redoing it. So when I got to the premiere, and they all came running over to meet me. "We wanted to meet you. We felt like we were working with you," because they kept playing that scene over and over in the newsroom. So what an honor, what a thrill that was. I mean, but I could go on and on. I mean, that was sort of television. That was one of the early HBO movies that they released as a feature worldwide, but it was, what they're doing now. It was like a week later they were doing it on HBO. So. But I guess Malcolm in the Middle, wherever I laughed the most in my life on the Mindy Project, because Mindy is so hilarious. Our guest stars were hilarious. Ed Weeks was hilarious. David Stassen was one of the writer producers. He was give me the funniest lines. Ike Barinholtz, please. I mean, there were times I thought I was going to pass out to not laugh. And of course, my character I smiled some when I got some demented humor that I thought was funny, but a lot of the time I had to have a straight face, and it was hard. I would be biting my cheeks like that to keep a straight face. So I did laugh a lot on that show, but it was a hard show too. So I'm not saying that I was laughing all the time because, we were on location and there were different, it was comedy's hard, as they say. Comedy
Yeah.
ain't easy. What's that old joke about dying's easy, comedy's hard?
Yeah,
That's true.
comedy and horror, the two things where
Timing
you're
is
going
everything.
out and you're saying, "I'm going to make you laugh," or "I'm going to make you scared." It's like it's very apparent
you wanted to
whether
make 'em
you
scared to laugh.
succeeded or not. Yeah. Returning to Donnie Darko in 2006, you returned to the Donnie Darko universe in the follow-up film Southland Tales. This was among, speaking of ensemble casts, this pretty much had every recognizable name and face of that time in this movie. But writer director Richard Kelly has such a unique approach to storytelling. He begs the audience to interpret what he's doing, and I'm curious what it's like on the acting side of that, bringing a movie to life. Like, how do you go about interpreting his stories, or is there a more explanation behind the scenes so the actors kind of know what their perspective is in the midst of everything?
Well, sometimes, but in that case, he was very as young as he was, and Drew was so cute. She would bring him food, eat, and say, "Eat. You have to eat food," because he was, I guess, 25 when he wrote it, 26 when he directed it, something like that. So he had a very clear vision for sure, but he had sort of channeled that whole script in 6 weeks. And so I think that's why it's fun for him to see what people think, because I don't know that he knew.
In 2007, you pre-visioned it. You played Carla Jean's mother in the Coen Brothers classic, No Country for Old Men.
3 years ago, I pre-visioned it.
You were absolutely perfect at bringing that special brand of Coen Brothers character to life with all the particular nuances. What was it like working with them?
Oh, well, it was just heaven. I mean, I couldn't believe it happened. I had loved them for so long. And as soon as I read the script, well, I knew the book, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is going to be their masterpiece. And that's saying something, because
Right,
everything
right.
they've done practically
Right.
is a masterpiece. And I had always liked Miller's Crossing was my favorite prior to this, but I really felt it. And I remember I was sick the day I went in for the audition, and I was lying down in the waiting room before I was called in, but I knew what to do with her. She was a bit of my grandmother, and I just knew who she was. I can't explain it. And so they got along great with them, but then I didn't hear for 2 months. And then I got a call on a Thursday, and they wanted me to come in on Saturday. They wanted to, photograph me and film me. And I couldn't go. I had a commitment with my daughter to go to something that Gina Davis does with, I think it's called Girls, Girls, Girls or something. It's some kind of sports camp and raising money for, girls to be in sports and things. And they had the soccer team that had won the gold medal was going to be there at a celebrity golf tournament, whatever. And Mary was a goalie. She's 6 feet tall, and she was 5'9" when she was 12. And so it meant so much to her. She had invited her friend. They were coming to pick. I couldn't cancel. I could not do it. So it broke my heart. And I said, what am I going to do? My husband said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to film it and we'll get it to them. And this was before, now everybody does that, but they didn't used to do that. You didn't send in VHS, especially to the Coen brothers. But he recorded it on our little VHS. Our daughter read the off-camera lines. And he took that thing, bless his heart, and hand delivered it to their office and put it on their desk. He didn't want anybody touching it. He wanted to make sure they got it. And then I got the offer on Monday. So it started with, I knew that it was a charm situation because for that to happen. And it was just fabulous. They were wonderful. They were kind, friendly. They knew what they wanted. They're the only directors I've ever worked with who gave you, with your sides in the morning, you got the shot list and the storyboard. And so I knew exactly what they were shooting when they were shooting it. And I had never thought that would be particularly helpful, but it was great. And just loved them. We finished early. I only shot 3 days, something like that. But, happy crew when you're working an 8 or 10 hour day, you got a happy crew. So everybody was very happy, very, very much in a good mood. And it was just wonderful. I will say that Mary Voorhees, their costume designer, who's done a lot of their movies, is really the one that came up with, I had never conceived that, white curly hair and the big glasses, and she had a beanie bra filled with beans, so I had saggy boobs, all that kind of stuff.
Sorry, one moment, please. There's a there's a knock at the door. Just gonna check on that real quick. I apologize.
Hello, who's at the door?
They're persistent. They tried like 5 minutes ago, and we tried to ignore it, but then they decided to try again.
Maybe it's important.
That's I saw that Josh Brolin had ended up sending in his audition tape as well for that, and I had Quentin Tarantino direct his audition.
Yeah, mine wasn't quite Quentin Tarantino. Yep, and funnily enough, he was best friends with the star of Jericho, that series I did. He was from Concord, North Carolina. Ulrich, Skeet Ulrich.
Oh yeah, okay.
Was best friends with Josh and had told him about the part. And then Josh got it. And so I always thought, gosh, that was generous of him to do, That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I've done it and it's been done for me, but it's pretty rare,
Well, it was on IMDb, so I'm not sure how true the end of the story was, but I thought it was funny that he put all this, Brolin put all this work into his audition tape. Quentin Tarantino directed it, shot it with the cinema camera, sends it into him, and their only reply, according to IMDb, was, we like the lighting. Which it's one of those things that feels true because it seems like something the Coen brothers would do because they're just very dry. But yeah, I thought that was humorous.
Well, I'm sure that they weren't used to getting that kind of lighting on a submission tape like that. They thought, my God, this is like a feature. Oh, that's funny. Josh was so cute at the premiere. He came over and he said, "I've been wanting to meet you. You got me killed." Because our scene was only on the phone, so we hadn't actually worked together.
Yeah, I think there's not much connecting between the characters, and that I think the your daughter in the movie is the only character that actually interacts with each of the main characters. She's like the eye of the pyramid, I guess.
Wow, I've seen that movie 15 times and I didn't realize that. That is cool. I can't wait to tell my husband. We love that movie. We love it. We love it, and it's not because of me. They did it.
It's not my go-to Coen Brothers movie when I want to watch a Coen Brothers movie, but it's definitely, I would say, the best Coen Brothers movie.
Which one is your go-to?
My go-to is depending on how I'm feeling, it's either The Big Lebowski or Burn After Reading. They don't make a bad movie. Everything that they've done has been at least a 9.
What was the one that got a little poo-pooed? Ladies in Lavender or something with Tom Hanks?
The Lady Killers.
The Lady Killers, that's right. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, it was Tom Hanks. Like, I'd never seen him before, and you could tell he was having so much fun with that character.
You gotta go at a movie like that with the right attitude. That's what we bring to it makes such a difference.
Yeah, I mean, their dialogue. Well, and that's actually my next question. Like the Lady Killers, the dialogue in all their movies, the dialogues have such a specific rhythm to it. It's almost like lyrics to a song. I mean, it's like you were made for a Coen Brothers movie when you're sitting in the back seat delivering those lines. You are in tune with their rhythm perfectly. And I'm curious if there is any room for improvisation on their films, or is it like to the T?
Well, I did it to the T, and they asked me if I wanted to do anything else, but I didn't have anything else to do. It's just so weird because, like, as I say, I improvised on Rain Man, and frequently in features you do improvise, but they're so good. It was to the T. I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the, only was in my work, but it was just perfect. So why mess with it? And I said, "Oh, I wish I had something else, but I don't." So we went home at 4:00.
I can't improve upon perfection.
This is it. This is what you paid for.
They had it right, and if they liked it, was good enough for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you've talked about how much you prepare and how you try to find the reasoning behind these roles. Let me ask you this: there's always the fine line of comedy and drama with their work. Now, as an actress tasked with bringing these emotions to life, how do you approach a role like this?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, once again, a bigot, really. I just, because I had this strong image, I felt like I had met this woman. Now, I was a little bit afraid of the big white wig.
Right.
And I thought, "Oh my God, is it too much?" When I got in that trailer, but then I saw Javier's and I was like, Javier's, well, I'm not going to be more direct. But I just knew I wanted to keep her very real. And I did a thing my mother always did. You've probably seen Southern women do it, of keeping my pocketbook in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother would cling to her pocketbook wherever she was. One time when I first moved out to California, we rented a limousine for her. And, we weren't rich, but we just wanted to make her feel good. She and my daddy. And picked him up, and Daddy's trying to help the driver put the luggage in the car. And I said, "Daddy, let him do it. Let him do it. That's his job, Then we get in the car and we've got champagne and hors d'oeuvres or whatever for her and Daddy. I don't even drink, but for them. And she got that pocketbook right in her lap. I said, "Mama, you can put the pocketbook down." She's just holding on to that. I'm fine. And, it just tickled me. So I've just grown up around these people. So it wasn't exactly my grandmother, wasn't exactly any one person. The high-pitched voice came from my grandmother, I think. But I just knew that she needed to be real, and she was real to me. So you start with that, and then with Mary Voorhees costumes, and then just looking at myself in the mirror. It was honestly one of the more fun roles because of that, because there's an old ad for A Streetcar Named Desire with Marlon Brando and Vivian Leigh, in the ad, it says, ripped from the fabric of life. And I've used that line ever since because I think that's hilarious. And I think this one for me was ripped from the fabric of my life. I just knew what to do. Sometimes you don't know. There was a thing Barry Sonnenfeld directed me in called Maximum Bob, the Elmore Leonard novel. And I knew what to do with her. And I was auditioning and I thought, oh my God, I have to go all the way with this character. So I did the whole hairdo piled up on top of my head and these black glasses and old Oxfords and a pitiful dress. I mean, I just knew what she looked like, but I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh my God, is this too much to go to an audition, you know? But I felt it in my heart. It wasn't intellectual. It came from inside. And I went down Sunset Strip, which is so fancy, you know, and I stopped at a gas station to get gas. And I said, we'll see how people react to me. If people start laughing or if somebody says, oh, where are you going? None of them did. They all were very polite. And I thought, okay, I got her. And I did get her and it was great. So yeah, they come from all different places, sometimes from a wig, a hairdo, a dress, sometimes just organically inside of me, you know. Doesn't mean I get the part though. And it doesn't mean it's that I'm always good.
Yeah.
But I try hard.
How tight was the direction on No Country? Like for instance, when you you know how many people I know in El Paso.
That's how many.
Is that in the script or is that like I feel the need to throw up my hand here?
You know, I don't remember. I think it was in the script. I don't know. Yeah, it must have been because the line was, that's how many. So it must have been in the script.
Okay.
You know, perhaps I did it with greater finesse than one would imagine.
You did. You definitely.
I got the cancer.
Now, if you don't quite remember that, let me ask you this: no matter whether it was fun or you know, just your personal memory, was there your favorite? Do you have a favorite memory from that set? Whether it was someone you worked with off screen, on screen, what was your favorite memory from that set?
Well, I loved everybody. What an honor! I will say my favorite memory, and I probably lost some money because of it, but you know, between shots, it occurred to me that I could record the telephone conversation with Josh. I could do my side of it. And I thought that would be better than in a studio because I was in character, I was in costume. I felt I would be able to give them more of what they wanted. And so they said, oh, what a great idea. And so they got the sound guy. We went into a room at the motel room and
She'll be all right.
She'll be all right.
and we recorded it in like 2 takes or something. And I did think it was great. When I saw the movie, I thought, oh man, that worked. And I don't know that I would have been as good in a cold studio. You know, it's different. And so, but then I thought, oh hell, I could have gotten another, you know, payday there.
ADR session, 8 hours. We need you.
Yeah. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. And the night of the premiere, oh my God, it was so thrilling. And watching it, I mean, it was the most quiet I've ever heard any audience ever during a movie. I mean, you could hear a pin drop the whole damn movie. And then when it was over, you know, with that ending, you know, you aren't even sure. It was so quiet. There was no applause. Beat, and then finally, whoa, big ovation, you know. And it was like, oh, phew, you know, because you never know. But I did think because they were being so incredibly quiet that people were with it all the way. I was. And then I remember at the premiere, Tony Bill, the great director and producer's wife, Helen Bartlett, asked me, she said, do you think that Tommy Lee Jones's character, do you think the sheriff finds God? And I said, gosh, I'm going to have to see it again. I hadn't thought of that. But you think about that, going on with that dream, you know, that he had about his father and stuff. Ooh, very moving. So.
Yeah, that movie just begs for interpretation. It feels like a parable more than you're watching something take place in reality. It feels like everything is a metaphor.
And people who say it's too violent. I mean, I don't like exploitative movies where it's violence just for violence personally, but you know, this violence didn't bother me at all. I mean, I've seen it all those times, and my sister-in-law was very upset after the movie, and I've heard other people say that, and I'm like, gosh, I just didn't feel that way. I
Yeah.
really didn't. It was all to purpose.
Yeah.
He was the devil, and Tommy Lee Jones represented God, and they're battling over the soul of every man. Josh Brolin. To me, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a solid theory. I would take that. Before we go on from No Country for Old Men, is there anything else that you think fans of the film would like to know?
Gosh, I don't know why that's such a loaded question for me. Well, I'll tell you something sweet about Javier. I didn't work with him. However, they had the Broadcast Critics Awards, and we were at the table with him, and I had been shooting that day, in fact, on a movie, and I barely made it. I was still in my costume, and I had a little French twist, and I was playing a Midwestern woman, had a little pocketbook and little high heels and this little imitation Chanel suit. And anyway, I was late. I walked the carpet, and then we were right there with him, but we were late, and they were giving away the awards, and we had to pause for a commercial break to take our seats. So they had seat fillers, you know how they do. And so we went down together through the audience and sat at this table and bonded. You know, we were friends by the time we got there. And he's just a sweetie pie. He really is. I know it sounds like I'm saying that about everybody. I don't feel that way about everybody. I promise you, but I did. And after he got his award and he sat back down, he looks at my husband. He says, "Was that okay? Was that all right? Did they understand my English?" And I thought, good grief, here's this extraordinary actor from a theatrical family in Spain. He's done all this incredible work, and he's so vulnerable and worried about, did they understand his English, and was what he said okay? And it just endeared him to me. So I'll tell you that story. That's it.
Now, the year's 2011. You were a writer and director on Girls, 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 a film written, produced, edited, and shot entirely by women, which also stars your daughter, Mary Chieffo. Can you tell us about that film and what it was like being on the other side of the camera?
Ooh, it was hard, but I loved it. I did. I loved it. Well, Anna O'Reilly, my dear friend Anna O'Reilly, and Lauren Miller Rogan and Jennifer Zaborowski, we all met for lunch, and they knew about this grant, and it was $1,000 grant to do a short, you know, that was all done by women. And Octavia and I were friends, and I said, well, I would love to direct it if you would allow me to include Octavia in the cast and my daughter in the cast. I would really love to direct them, because I had done in addition to the play, I had done another movie that I produced called Herpes Boy, which is, if you haven't seen it, it is darling movie. And I had gotten Octavia and Anna were both in that, and my daughter was in that a little bit. So, you know, I like to use people that I know well and love. Anyway, they agreed to it. And so we started working on the script. We had meetings, and Lauren wrote a script, and I had just done The Artist, which of course was a silent film. And but in The Artist, we did move our lips, you know, and the lines would come up as they used to do in the old films. And I had this idea while doing The Artist. I thought, wonder if we could do a movie where no one spoke. Could we really make that clear, where it was just music back to back? And, you know, it'd be choosing the right songs or score, you know, and it would take very special actors. And so after Lauren had gone to all the trouble to write the script, I said, what do you think? And she was like, oh, I don't know. And she said, okay, let's try it. And so that's what we did. And so we took away all the dialogue, and it's great. Honestly, it's great. And we won a couple of awards, and audiences responded. One film festival we didn't get in. I was so surprised because I had heard that people loved it. And I asked the lady, I said, tell me the truth, I'll never repeat. So I won't tell you which festival, but an important festival. And she said, Beth, it was too feminine. And that was, you know, back in 2011.
Yeah.
So it's different now. It
Oh,
wouldn't.
yeah, it would have been the rave of the festival now. It would have
Yeah,
been the rave.
now it would be like, oh yeah, all women. And she said it was just too feminine. She said we get harder, edgier stuff. But I'm very proud of it. I love it very much. And the hardest part for me was, well, I mean, it's all challenging. Y'all are directors, right? So you know what I'm talking about. It's hard work. And you have to get a little obsessed. It's only for me anyway.
Yeah.
The hardest moment for me was sitting at my dining table all by myself because nobody else could do it and creating the shot list. I had to visualize the movie. Okay, this, and then we go here. Now, did I use it? I used some of it, but a lot of it was on the fly. And then people would give me ideas. My daughter gave me an idea. One of the crew people gave me an idea. You just sort of do what you do. Then we had some, not reshoots, but additional shooting. And my husband got a lot of insert shots for me. And then the next hardest thing was, editing. It's so hard to cut your favorite shots. We had this shot. Now, y'all relate to this. Beautiful shot of a cup of coffee being poured. I mean, we had gotten that shot. It was beautiful. But it was blocking our story because it made me want to do the next scene in a different way. And I said, I'm not losing that shot. I'm not losing that shot. But it was too much to have her take that cup of coffee, deliver it. We were losing momentum. We didn't need it. And it was slowing us down.
Mhm.
So I very sadly had to cut that shot. That kind of thing was hard. But
Yeah.
I loved it once it was done. Now, could I cut more now? Absolutely. I've seen it so many times at every festival I took it to. I think, oh, why didn't I cut that? I could cut that. But it works at 12 minutes and 42 seconds. Mark Duplass, who was one of our guest stars on Mindy, said that to me, he said, the trick to getting in Sundance is have a movie under 5 minutes because they love to have a short movie that they can program. And he said, really, all the festivals, but he said, that's what you need to do if you really want to direct, make a bunch of movies under 5 minutes and keep putting them out. I said, well, a little late for me.
Yeah, no, I'm still, there's a few things that hit home for me in what you said. First was the not having dialogue had to be so nice in post-production, having to not have to deal with audio cleanup or any of that audio post-production. But then when you're talking about the shot list, it's the same thing where it's nice to have that blueprint in your back pocket just in case your brain decides not to turn on.
Yeah,
The next day.
that happened.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a situation where the DP came over and said something to me, and all I heard was gobbledygook, gobbledygook, gobbledygook. And I was like, oh my God. And I looked at the AD, who was also our producer, and I said, what did she say? And I heard again, gobbledygook. I had ceased to speak English. I could not understand it. And I said, okay, we're going over here. I didn't know what they said. To this day, I don't know what they said. So yeah, what did you say? You said it good, like your brain
just decides not to turn on.
Yeah, just doesn't turn on. It just says, I can't go there. You've overworked me. I'm not going to do it.
I'm on autopilot until further notice. Yeah.
The hard part with the editing, though, was I had an album. I had the rights to an album. And I knew that was the music I wanted. But then my poor editor, we didn't have a fancy, music editor. So she had to do all of that extra work. And I know that it was very difficult for her. So I really gave her a tremendous amount of credit.
And editing has gotten easier from year over years. I totally identify with what you're saying, not wanting to lose a particular shot because you know what went into it and it's just so pretty or whatever the reason is. And like my first movie could have easily been 45 minutes shorter. And now I kind of try to think because I look back at those and it's so easy. Like a few years go by, you look at something, you're like, I could easily trim 30 minutes off of this thing. I try to put myself in that mindset while editing. Like, how am I going to feel about this in a few years? And it's difficult, but it's helped not be so married to every moment, and let things go to make a tighter picture at the end of it. Speaking of tighter picture, let's move on to the next one, number 11 on our questions. We have 2 questions left after
We're
this.
gonna make it. Okay, good. Well, we've done well.
And we have barely scratched the surface of the multitude of your accomplishments today. So I want to just kind of take an umbrella over everything that remains and say, is there a particular character that you've played that you're most fond of that you would want more people to know about out there and check out?
Well, obviously Kitty Farmer, Donnie Darko. We talked about her before. Sissy Hickey and Sordid Lives. I mean, that movie is such a, it's a very low budget movie and just wild and raucous. And I just love it so much. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I've had a couple of people. My mother almost got in a fight. She loved it. Of all my things, I think that was her favorite. And she was at the motion picture Country Home when she was her last 2.5, 3 years of life. And we had a screening for all of her friends, and one of them just hated it and wheeled out in her wheelchair. And my mother went after her and just said, told her off. And I mean, it was so funny. Dale and I got so tickled because I said we caused a fight. They almost came to blows at the motion picture Country Home. But
I would slap you if I didn't have this purse in my hands.
Oh, wow.
Very funny. I got to tell Dale that line. But anyway, I love Sissy Hickey. She too is my grandmother. And I went to Gay Pride at Palm Springs once, and I'm just such a nut. I dressed like Sissy Hickey to ride in the parade. I couldn't resist it with that hairdo. And I had rubber bands, and I was just being goofy. And I was sitting on the back of a Lincoln Continental convertible, and I was throwing rubber bands, and I had a cigarette in my mouth. And these 2 gorgeous guys were driving the car, and, my escorts. And Canyon Boulevard was just, I don't know, 10 feet deep with gorgeous men. And we're driving down Canyon Boulevard. And I thought, my grandmother, because my grandmother liked men, and so did my mother. And I said, my grandmother is up in heaven tap dancing. This tickles her that her old country bones, are being represented, and look at the attention she's getting, So I do love Sissy Hickey. And she was a good person, she's the one that she stands up for Brother Boy, Leslie Jordan's character at the end. She's the one that says, let him stay. And I liked her, but she was, and she'd been married 5 times. That's my kind of woman.
Oh, we made the read, man.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so we're winding down here, but with so much experience yourself, on top of all the experienced filmmakers that you've shared the screen with, what is the best piece of advice you can give to aspiring actors?
Well, I would say slow and steady wins the race. I would say go to class, get in plays, do theater, and build yourself a support group in these classes in theater, and invite everybody to see it. Don't be too proud to do student films. I mean, I did a student film. I was trying to think. The last one I did was probably 3 years ago. And I don't do them all the time, but if I am available and somebody gets a script to me and I think, I like the director, I'll do, low budget movies. And, this invitation I just got was, I'm sure they're not paying much. But it's not about that. It's about the role and the story and the director. And so don't be a snob. Don't let your ego, remember, ego is not your amigo. and pray to be of service, because that's the goal. The goal is, what are artists anyway? We're human beings who are telling our personal stories through other people's mouths. We're channeling our stories through these other people. And we learn about ourselves and we grow as human beings. And hopefully, that's the goal, whether you're Picasso or whether you're the Coen brothers or me or whoever. I think that's the goal. It's not about getting rich and famous, which is of course why we all go into it. I mean, not all actors, but a lot of us actors, that we're dreaming big, and I wanted to be loved. I just wanted everybody to love me. And it was a way I could get my mother's attention. She loved it when we called it showing off or showing out. Sometimes they'd say, look at her showing out. And Mama loved it. It made her laugh. It made her smile. My Uncle Billy loved it. I wanted them to love me. And so that's really was the beginning of it. And I heard Meryl Streep say that too, that, she said, some of us, we all hopefully get some attention when we sing a little song at Sunday school or whatever. But some of us like that applause a little too much. It's like, whoa, I want that for the rest of my life. So I would say over time, it needs to change so that it is about the work and the craft and learning. But it's so thrilling. I mean, it's the ultimate between action and cut, or if you're stepping on the stage. Once you step on that stage and you're in that unknown territory, anything can happen. Anything can happen between action and cut. Anything can happen on that stage that's lightning in a bottle. And so it brings you closer to your higher power. Whatever your definition of I don't care if it's equals MC squared, the energy of the universe. Even Einstein said the universe is friendly. And the people that have been splitting atoms say, I don't know what it's called when we get to that point where we split that atom, but there's some energy there. So that's what we're after is to come close to that, to touch it, and to feel it and to let it pass through us. So that's a lot. I didn't keep it simple, did I?
That's wonderful.
I like it. Yeah, no, there's something.
I would say slow and steady wins the race is the biggest.
And ego is not your amigo. Got it. Yeah. No, when a group of adults get together and agree on and like play pretend on an agreed premise, how is that any different than the reality we live in anyway? So to get to do that on stage or in front of a camera where at least the premise is controlled and there's a meaning that we've all agreed on, I mean, yeah, it's got to be thrilling, and to really not take that for granted if you're in the position to be able to get to live these extraordinary lives within the big life. The most recent role that you've played that has been released is Sheriff Lund in the new Nicolas Cage film. Right back to the beginning of where we started here. As everything begins and ends with Nicolas Cage.
Always.
Willy's Wonderland.
Willie! Willie needs to eat, and I'm gonna feed him.
And busy as always, we see that you have a few projects in various stages of production to be released in the near future. Can you tell the audience what to keep an eye out for?
Well, I'm very excited about Goliath that I did with my old friend Billy Bob Thornton, and he and I started together, and I was just thrilled to do it. And we were actually on a show called The Judge, and I'm playing the judge. And at one point I was supposed to do the movie The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall, but unfortunately I wasn't available because of the Mindy Project. And so I just have a feeling that Billy thought of me for this because, it's like coming full circle at this time of life. And I love doing that. So that's coming out soon, I would think. Don't know. It wrapped in January, so I hope we hear soon. What do I have in the camp? Well, right now on Amazon Prime Video. Ooh, Poltergeist behind you. Poltergeist.
Oh, that was behind us. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Hey, maybe it's stuff we need to be watching out for.
We started out with lights, camera, action. We're down to camera, action.
Anything can happen between action and cut. Anything can happen. Have you not been listening? It's okay. What are you doing there? You trying to see what it was?
Oh, okay.
It's the light. It's the light. You're a little afraid there.
Yeah.
See what happened when Nicolas Cage? He heard us talking about him. He came all the way here to mess.
Willy's Wonderland.
Yes.
Well, anyway, this movie I have on Amazon Prime now is called Words on Bathroom Walls. And I love it. I just think it's great. Charlie Plummer plays a high school student who is a schizophrenic. And it was released in theaters, but, it's the pandemic. So anyway, I'm very happy that people can see it now. There's another one called Wander Darkly it was also released in theaters. Sienna Miller, Diego Luna. I don't know when it's coming to a streaming service, but I'm sure it will be. It did very well at Sundance and so on.
Amazing.
That's it for now. I mean, I'm working. I have one big movie I would love to tell you about, but I am signed to a
Confidentiality agreement.
It's
Don't
okay.
worry.
We respect that.
Something tells me we'll know it when we see it.
You will. This is one you
Amazing.
And remember, hey, you got to do us a favor. If we review that in season 3, you come back and talk to us about that. Deal?
All right, absolutely.
See, there we go. We're booking. We are
recorded.
booking. All right. So listen, this is not really a last question, more, but any parting words that you would like to share with our audience or your audience before you say goodbye?
Well, I would like to say to your audience that I hope they realize how lucky they are to have such wonderful people to bring an intimate interview. We never met before today, but you're so open and loving and kind, and it's amazing. I mean, I knew from the email that you sent or Facebook thing that you sent, and I said, oh, this is a good person. I'm sorry it didn't work out before, but I'm glad we got it. I hope your audience realizes that, because sometimes we take people for granted. And I'm not saying that you are. I'm not saying you're a victim or anything like that. But I would like to celebrate you, honestly, and say that this has been lovely and fun and friendly. And I've talked about so many different things. I'm sorry I took so much time, but
No,
you guys are great. I think you're great. I really do. And I wish you good luck with your filmmaking career.
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Hopefully one day we'll be saying, hey, we need her to come act with us. And so, act for
Well,
us.
Jackson and, Jacksonville. So I've worked in
ayo.
Jacksonville. I'm just saying.
Listen, I appreciate it. You'll always be the original MS in my mind. Meryl Streep, not the other one. All right, listen, Beth, thank you. No, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Tell your husband we apologize. We will never keep him or you waiting again. Good luck with you guys' business meeting, and peace, prosper, and live long.
Live long.
There, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter taught me how to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Take care. Lots of love to you.
Thank you. You too. All
Thank
the
you.
best.
Bye.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.